Wu Yun, you do realize that burying someone in the mountains is a crime, right? Oh no. After a moment of awkward silence, Mr. Kim licked his dry lips and spoke with difficulty. So, you're saying you found those Chinese Koreans and planned to bury them in the mountains? Is that what you're saying? Wu Yun replied with a bright, childlike smile, yes. Mr. Kim grabbed the back of his neck, thinking it was fortunate they were in a hospital emergency room. At least, if he fainted, he wouldn't die here. Hey, Wu Yun, you can't bury people, you know. Mr. Cha, unable to watch any longer, added his comment. Wu Yun replied, I know, but felt it wasn't enough, so he added a few more words. You can't hit someone from behind and throw them into a lake either. That's illegal too. The faces of the two men listening grew increasingly pale. Wu Yun, leaning sideways, asked nonchalantly. You didn't really believe I was serious about burying someone in the mountains, did you? Neither could quickly deny it. No matter how kindly Wu Yun smiled, to those who knew his true nature, it was nothing but hypocritical. Of course, it's a joke, just a joke. Even as he playfully said that, neither of them could take it lightly, having seen him holding a blood-stained liquor bottle in a bar. By the way, if you find those guys, won't you report them to the police? It's better to do that than make a big fuss. Yes, I understand. Wu Yun answered, but didn't say he would do so. Now that I think about it, this is the third time Inseop has saved your life, Wu Yun. If someone saves you 3 times, don't you think you should erect a statue in front of your house? A statue of Manager Choi Inseop. Third time. Wu Yun tilted his head slightly, puzzled. In his memory, this was only the second time that foolish manager had saved him and ended up in bed. He couldn't understand where the third time came from. After he saved you from the lake, oops. Mr. Cha quickly covered Mr. Kim's mouth with his hand. Was there something else? Nothing at all. Mr. Cha tried to brush it off, but Wu Yun had already sensed that something had happened without his knowledge. What happened? How did Inseop save my life another time? Mr. Cha glared at Mr. Kim, regretting that he had let it slip. After the incident, Inseop had come and begged Mr. Cha to keep it a secret from Wu Yun. How did he save me? Wu Yun asked Mr. Kim directly. Scratching his head, Mr. Kim decided to come clean. After he pulled you out of the water, he gave you CPR and saved your life. Your heart stopped for a moment. According to the paramedics, if Inseop hadn't performed CPR correctly, you might have died even if they had pulled you out. CPR. Well, what else would he use for CPR? His nostrils. Before Mr. Kim could finish his sentence, there was a crashing sound from the bed next to them. All three turned to see something wriggling under the curtain. Pretending to be surprised, Wu Yun pulled the curtain back and exclaimed, Inseop, are you awake? Ah. Startled, Inseop, who was lying flat on the floor, lifted his head. His neck and earlobes were red, indicating he had heard their conversation. Wu Yun, acting as if he knew nothing, got down and helped him up. Did you fall out of bed? Yes. Even as he answered, Inseop's large eyes darted around nervously. Are you hurt? I was really worried. Wu Yun kindly asked as he helped him back onto the bed. It was hard to believe this was the same man who had just talked about burying Chinese Koreans and praised the beauty of Korea's mountains. I'm fine. Inseop answered while pulling the sheets over himself. Seeing his hands gripping the sheet tightly and turning red, Wu Yun suppressed a laugh. Besides the broken fingers, are you feeling okay? Yes. I'm fine. Hearing the trembling in his voice, Wu Yun looked at Mr. Kim and signaled with his eyes. Inseop, are you sure? Are you not in pain? I'm fine. He was trembling so much under the sheets that it was almost pitiful. Wu Yun pulled the sheets away. Are you really okay? Without the sheets' protection, Inseop opened his eyes wide in shock. Wu Yun reached out and touched his forehead. You have a bit of a fever. Do you want to stay in the hospital for a few days? They said a room will be available tomorrow morning. No, I'll just leave. Inseop glanced anxiously at the four-drip, hoping it would finish soon so he could leave. He wanted to pull it out and escape immediately. All set. You can go once the 4 is done. Mr. Cha returned, waving the receipt. All 4 men's eyes turned to the four-drip. Woo-yun, arms crossed, waited contentedly. Mr. Cha and Mr. Kim looked concerned, and Inseop bit his lip like a condemned man awaiting his sentence. Finally, the last drop of the 4 fell. Woo-yun signaled a nurse to come over and remove it. Let's go now. Why those words made his heart sink, Inseop couldn't understand. He closed his eyes. We'll get off here. Woo-yun held Inseop's shoulder as he spoke. In the car ride, Inseop had repeatedly insisted he wanted to go home, but Woo-yun refused, saying he couldn't leave a patient alone and had things to discuss. I'll just go home. Even as Woo-yun got out of the car, Inseop clung to the seatbelt, blinking. But Woo-yun didn't wait for a response and pulled him out. Mr. Cha, please postpone my schedule for tomorrow. What? The whole schedule for tomorrow? Mr. Cha asked, looking incredulous. I fell off a horse. Everyone will understand. Hey, Woo-yun, that's nonsense. Hey. Woo-yun closed the car door before Mr. Cha could start his scolding. Let's go. Still looking for a way to escape, Inseop was dragged along by Woo-yun. Even in the elevator, Inseop pleaded to go home, but Woo-yun didn't budge. He repeated the same answers. How can I leave a patient alone? I can't do that to my lifesaver. I have questions to ask, so let's talk slowly. Woo-yun forcibly led Inseop out of the elevator. Inseop wanted to cry. When he woke up in the emergency room, hearing familiar voices made him feel safe. He listened to the deep, resonant voice, feeling his heart flutter and wanting to keep hearing it forever. He felt good despite the pain. But as his mind cleared and he understood the conversation, his smile faded. He felt his blood rush to his face. Desperate to escape, he moved, but the bed was higher than he thought, and his drugged body didn't cooperate. He fell, making a loud noise, and after that, all he wanted was to die of embarrassment. Woo-yun must have known he heard everything, but he said nothing about it. He just said he had questions. Oh, how he wanted to cry. If only he could cry his heart out right now, how wonderful it would be. Please give me the right to cry. Inseop lowered his head, standing behind Woo-yun, who was opening the door. Come in. Woo-yun said, opening the door. Inseop hesitated for a long time, looking troubled. Come in, quickly. As Inseop stepped inside, Woo-yun immediately closed the door. Hearing the door lock automatically behind him, Inseop felt tears welling up. He wanted to go home. His fingers hurt too much, he was embarrassed, tired, and above all, he was scared of Woo-yun. What are you doing? Take off your shoes. Yes. Inseop, taking off his shoes, noticed his socks were dirty and couldn't bring himself to cross the threshold. Why? My socks are dirty. So what? You shouldn't enter someone's house with dirty socks. Inseop remembered reading that in Eastern cultures, where people sit on the floor, you should pay special attention to your socks when visiting someone's home. Woo-yun didn't like having dirty socks in his house either, but Inseop's reaction was as if he had committed a grave crime. Who said that? A book? Thinking of responding that the book was useless, Woo-yun walked over to Inseop. You're right. Entering someone's house with dirty socks is very rude. With that, Woo-yun slipped his arm under Inseop's knees and lifted him up. What are you? I'll take you to the bathroom. I can go. No, I'll go barefoot, or I'll hop on one foot. I'll go. Inseop babbled incoherently, struggling like a drowning person. Woo-yun gripped his shoulder tightly. The laughter in his eyes disappeared. Don't struggle too much. My shoulder hurts. Just stay still. Though his voice was gentle, his gaze was terrifying. Inseop couldn't bring himself to ask to be put down. Wu Yun carried him to the bathroom and leaned against the door, asking playfully, "Do you want to take a shower?" "Yes, maybe." "Can you do it with your injured hand? Should I help?" Inseop shook his head wildly. He shook it so vehemently that Wu Yun worried his neck might break. Wu Yun had no hobby of seeing a man's naked body, nor did he have any interest in helping a man shower. However, Inseop's reaction to his joke strangely sparked his competitive spirit. Wu Yun crossed his arms and asked again, "Are you sure you don't need help? If water gets into the cast, the wound might rot. What will you do then?" "I'll manage somehow." Despite his answer, Inseop looked like he was about to cry at the mention of a rotting wound. Wu Yun wanted to stand there for 10 minutes and vividly describe how maggots could infest the wound, making it smell terrible, but decided to stop there for today. Wu Yun smiled and said, "Wait a moment," and went to the kitchen, returning with something for Inseop. "Wrap your cast with this to keep it dry." It was plastic wrap. Realizing he could wrap his cast by himself, Inseop nodded vigorously. Once the door closed, Inseop took his first deep breath since waking up. However, Wu Yun's playful voice from outside attacked him again. "If you can't manage, call me. I'll help." Inseop shakily responded, "Thank you, but I'm fine," and quickly locked the bathroom door. He sat down on the bathroom floor, relieved only after hearing Wu Yun's laughter fade. When Wu Yun finished his shower and came out in a bathrobe, the first thing he saw was Inseop dozing off on the sofa. Wu Yun stifled a laugh. When he had mentioned taking a shower before continuing their talk, Inseop had turned red and just nodded. Wu Yun had no intention of doing anything, he just mentioned taking a shower. But seeing Inseop act like a nervous virgin dragged to a hotel was amusing. So he deliberately took a leisurely shower and came out without fully dressing, planning to see how much Inseop would tremble. But now, he was asleep. Wu Yun sat down across from Inseop, who was nodding off like a drug chick. He remembered how Inseop had fallen asleep with tissue stuffed up his nose after having a nosebleed from stress. It was confusing whether he was timid or brave. Wu Yun observed Inseop. His left hand was bandaged from a cut by the stalker's blade, and his right hand was in a partial cast. He looked too pitiful to be a manager of an actor. Looking closely, Wu Yun noticed that Inseop seemed to have lost weight. His once chubby cheeks appeared slightly sunken. Inseop had been under a lot of stress lately, rarely sleeping and constantly being on standby at the set. Unlike other managers who could slack off or disappear, Inseop was always nervously standing by Wu Yun's side. As Wu Yun watched him sleep, Inseop looked like a minor who hadn't even graduated from school. It was hard to believe this frail person had saved his life twice, no, 3 times. Recalling that Inseop had given him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, Wu Yun's eyes naturally went to Inseop's lips. "He put those lips on mine." Wu Yun touched his lips with his fingers, curious about how Inseop had managed, trembling all the while. It felt unfair not to remember it. Deciding to wake him, Wu Yun gently shook Inseop's hunched shoulders. "Inseop." Startled, Inseop jumped up. "No, I wasn't sleeping. I just closed my eyes for a moment." "You've got drool on your mouth." Embarrassed, Inseop wiped the corner of his mouth, finding nothing. Realizing he had fallen for another joke, his face turned red. "Are you tired?" "No, I'm fine." "How's your hand?" "Thanks to your concern, it's okay." Inseop straightened up, although his hand still throbbed and hurt even with a slight touch. "Good. Let's have a chat." "Maybe I should have just admitted I was in pain. Why straight to the point?" Inseop's cold sweat trickled down his back as he anxiously waited for Wu Yun's next words. "I'm curious about something." Heart pounding, Inseop watched Wu Yun's lips. "Why did you save me?" "Because it was unavoidable. I thought knowing would make you uncomfortable, so I asked others to keep it a secret." I brush my teeth 3 times a day and don't have any contagious diseases. Inseop spewed out prepared lines like a magic bag spilling its contents. Wu Yun burst into laughter, leaning back. Ha ha ha, no, that's not it. I mean, I did plan to ask about that later, but... Ha ha ha, but that's not what I wanted to ask. No. I'm screwed. If only I had stayed quiet. Why did I think Wu Yun wanted to talk about mouth-to-mouth resuscitation? Anyone, hit me with a big hammer and bury me. Let's set that aside for now. I'm curious about something else. There's something you need to know before you answer. As he spoke, Wu Yun's smile faded, replaced by a cold, relentless expression. I don't care if others lie to me about things that don't concern me. But when it's something I care about, I want to know the truth, no matter what. This is one of those times. What could he be about to ask? Inseop felt a surge of fear. Could he have figured out who I really am? Is he about to confront me about faking my identity as a manager? His hands went cold and his lips dried up. Not wanting to show his anxiety, Inseop lifted his head, trying to appear calm. So please answer honestly. Do you promise? Yes, I will. Their gazes met, and Wu Yun, in a calm, low voice, asked, Why did you save me? Pardon? Why did you save me, not once but twice, or 3 times if we count what I don't remember? What's your reason? That's... Don't give me some cliché answer about humanity or being a manager. I won't accept it. Caught off guard, Inseop was at a loss for words. He had expected a sharp question from Wu Yun, but not this. And with his usual answers blocked, Inseop's mind went blank. Jumping into a lake in winter without any preparation is suicidal. Let's say, at most, it was to repay me for saving you in the bathroom. But even then, it's too much. Wu Yun continued, counting on his fingers. CPR, as disgusting as it may be, is just a matter of rinsing your mouth later. I don't remember it, so it feels surreal. The second finger folded. But today's incident is really incomprehensible. It makes the previous ones even more confusing. That's why I must know why you are so desperate to save me. Oh, and let's exclude the fan excuse too. With his last possible excuse taken away, Inseop felt his mind go blank again. What should I say? Take your time. We have plenty of it. Wu Yun leaned back, speaking leisurely, but his eyes were still tightly fixed on Inseop. His relentless gaze felt like it pierced through him. Inseop sighed softly and desperately tried to think. Yes, speak honestly. Wu Yun had decided that his future with Inseop would depend on his answer. Today, he realized that curiosity or observation wasn't enough to keep Inseop around. Just as Mr. Kim pointed out, Wu Yun felt his dirty personality would be exposed sooner or later. If that harmed his image, he could always quit acting. He had enough money to live comfortably for the rest of his life. He had initially started acting to spite his father, who had sent him to Korea for treatment. He found he liked deceiving people, it was legal, made him money, and infuriated his father. Quitting acting wouldn't bother him. Being forced out by others' will, however, was unacceptable. Wu Yun liked to control his emotions. But around Inseop, he often lost his composure. Today, seeing Inseop running towards him despite trembling in fear, he felt a surge of hot emotion. His heart throbbed painfully, uncomfortably. He didn't want to be swept away by this unfamiliar feeling without knowing why. Please tell me. Wu Yun's piercing gaze bore into his manager, who was struggling to speak. Because I... Unable to look away, Inseop stammered, I don't want anyone to die or get hurt next to me again. Wu Yun's eyes narrowed slightly. Inseop took a deep breath. As long as I'm by your side, I don't want anything to happen. So it's about the value of life. Wu Yun clicked his tongue, looking disappointed. Inseop shook his head stubbornly. No, it's not about the value of life. It's my personal greed. Whether he believed it or not, Insiep was speaking the truth. He didn't want to experience another death. He knew it was something inevitable in life, but for now, he wanted to avoid it at all costs. When a close friend died, I couldn't be by their side. Once he started, the truth flowed out uncontrollably. Even though he knew he didn't need to say this, Insiep couldn't stop his lips from moving. So I want to protect. I don't want to experience that loss again. It's my personal greed. It's not about noble feelings like love for humanity. Then you would save anyone. Not just me. Insiep didn't see the crooked smile on Wu Yun's lips as he asked. No, it's not that. As long as I'm your manager, during that time, I want to do anything I can for you. That's my greed. Saying those words felt like vomiting a ball of fire from his throat. It was genuine and truthful. Even if the day comes when I betray you, I want to do everything I can for you until then. It's all greed, pointless and unnecessary. Yet, I felt compelled to act. So, when Wu Yun fell off the horse, my body moved before my mind could make a decision. I knew I shouldn't approach a frightened horse, but I ran to save him. Even when the horse reared and charged, I instinctively shielded him. I didn't care if I was later criticized for giving medicine after causing the disease. Or in this case, giving medicine and then causing the disease. I just wanted to. So I did. If you asked for a reason, I have none. It's just my desire. No matter how much I told myself that Wu Yun was a bastard and tried to strengthen my resolve by thinking of Jenny, my feelings had already gone too far. I had to accept that even if I betrayed him, I could never truly hate him. I just want to do anything for you. Wu Yun quietly repeated Insiep's words, feeling strange hearing them from someone else. Insiep's face flushed red. Anything I want. If it's something I can do. All right, then. Wu Yun pointed to his lips. Then kiss me. What? Kiss me. Now. Hearing this, Insiep was confused if he had understood the meaning of kiss correctly. He blinked, unable to comprehend the situation. You said you'd do anything you could. CPR or a kiss, it's the same, right? Why? Can't you do it? Were your words just empty? Feigning disappointment, Wu Yun pouted, and Insiep quickly shook his head. They weren't just empty words, but why are you asking this? I want to see if your words are sincere. If it's too much, you don't have to do it. I'll just assume your answer was driven by humanity. Wu Yun began to rise, but Insiep grabbed him, feeling desperate. There was an odd sense of urgency that he had to convince Wu Yun now. I mean every word I say. Really? A faint smirk crossed Wu Yun's face. I can do it. Even as he spoke, Insiep's hands trembled, which Wu Yun noticed. Can you? Yes. You don't have to force yourself. This isn't an emergency situation like when I was dying. No, All right. I'll close my eyes for you. It was as if he were doing him a great favor. Insiep released the hem of Wu Yun's shirt. His mouth felt dry. No matter how much he tried to organize his thoughts, his brain had long ceased to function properly. His heart pounded so hard he felt it in every vein of his body. Knowing it was just a whimsical test from Wu Yun didn't stop his heart from racing. Calm down. This is just a test. A test to see if I'm telling the truth. Aren't you doing it? Wu Yun opened one eye and asked. Insiep looked at Wu Yun's face, right in front of him with his eyes closed, and felt his heart pounding wildly. He had spent sleepless nights imagining what it would be like to kiss him, blushing at the thought of his lips. When he performed CPR on Wu Yun after rescuing him from the lake, their lips had touched, but it was so urgent that he didn't think of it as a kiss. He remembered feeling a bit flushed later when he thought about it, but there was no real memory of the sensation. Now, he was about to create a new memory. Insiep slowly leaned forward. The sharp, cold line of Wu Yun's nose was so close it seemed he could touch it. I feel like I'm going to die. He's so unrealistically handsome. This entire situation felt surreal, like a dream all day. He leaned closer, his whole body trembling. He felt Wu Yun's breath on his lips. Just a little more, a little more. His lips brushed slightly against Wu Yun's. The touch was so light it was almost nothing, but for Inseop, it was enough to feel like he might die on the spot. Oh my God. At this rate, my heart. At that moment, Wu Yun opened his eyes. I was joking. I guess I can't even joke with you. But I really don't have a thing for guys, so I can't go any further. Wu Yun spoke playfully as if unaware that their lips had just touched. Sorry. You don't have a thing for guys either, so this must be awkward, right? All right. I believe you now. I believe what you said. Ha ha ha. Wu Yun laughed heartily, seeming genuinely amused by the situation. But Inseop felt like he had been doused in cold water. He felt emotionally naked in front of Wu Yun. Are you crying? Wu Yun looked at Inseop, whose face was trembling. Are you crying, Inseop? Inseop wanted to deny it, but tears were already streaming down his cheeks. He hated himself for getting genuinely excited over Wu Yun's casual joke. He wanted to die from the shame. I'll go. Inseop tried to stand, but Wu Yun grabbed his arm. Inseop tried to pull away, but his fingers hit the sofa, and he let out a silent scream, curling up. Sorry, Inseop. Wu Yun quickly helped him up, looking at his face. You hit your hand. Are you okay? I'm going home. Tears kept falling. Everything was a mess. He didn't know what embarrassed him more, crying in front of Wu Yun again, or falling for a joke and leaning in for a kiss. Inseop just wanted to go home. His broken fingers hurt, he felt nauseous, his face was flushed, and he hated himself. After all these years, he was still foolishly falling into the same trap. He wanted to quit. He knew what would happen if he stayed by Wu Yun's side. He would end up falling for him all over again, finding more reasons to admire him. Fool, idiot, utter moron. I'm sorry, Jenny. I'm an even bigger fool than I thought. I'm sorry for the joke. I didn't mean to upset you. Wu Yun gently lifted Inseop's face, apologizing softly. It was true. It was just a joke for his amusement. He already knew that what Inseop had said was true. He just wanted to tease him, make him uncomfortable. He wanted to see Inseop squirm because of him. Inseop tried to hold back his tears, but they kept falling. Wu Yun thought he looked so pretty crying. He had seen many actresses cry on set, and some were praised for looking prettier when they cried. But the sight of Inseop biting his lip and silently crying was superior. Usually, he had a somewhat delicate but ordinary face, but crying made him look strangely beautiful. Was he always someone who cried so prettily? Wu Yun thought as he held Inseop's chin, examining him closely. Honestly, he wouldn't mind looking at this face crying all day, but it was too pitiful. This was the person who had broken his fingers for him today, after all. I believe what you said, Inseop. So please don't cry. Wu Yun hugged Inseop. Inseop tried to pull away, but Wu Yun held him firmly, resting his head on Inseop's shoulder and patting his back. Don't cry. Okay. It makes me feel really bad. I was wrong. I'm sorry, Inseop. The gentle voice and the comforting touch on his back made the situation feel even more unreal, and Inseop cried for a long time. Don't cry, why are you crying over this? It makes me look like the bad guy. I'm sorry, I won't joke anymore. I'm sorry for making my lifesaver cry. Wu Yun softly comforted him. Then suddenly, he spoke up. Sorry to say this to someone crying, but... Inseop, fearing what terrible thing Wu Yun might say next, felt his tears well up again. If only he could block his ears. After a pause, Wu Yun continued. Do you want to rewrite the contract with me?